And it's 6:30, so we will call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, Bill, can you hear us?
How's it going?
I'm gonna say you can.
And we can.
He answered you back.
He did.
That's usually a guarantee of success. Okay. Let's see what we have first.
Oh, yeah, Kevin, yeah,
Kevin's,
Kevin's on vacation.
Yeah.
Lucky son.
good time to be away if he's somewhere warm and sunny.
Say he's going to Florida, so I think that checks the box.
They've had a lot of rain on this year.
Is that a warm and sunny or warm and wet?
That's come right up the coast and then smacked us.
Mhm.
Okay, let's start off. I have a request from one member to keep this to 1 hour. We will do our best.
Okay,
Second.
All right. Let's start off with relocation to new high school update and fiber connections. First off, what's the latest on the construction project itself?
I'll jump in here. So the groundbreaking will be May 17th. I think it's May 17th, whatever that Friday is of that week. School will be built back here. Parking will be basically disappear. I don't know. I think all of it disappears back here
My understanding is by April 22nd, all of this is gone.
behind here. There will be additional parking
And you're right, it's the 17th.
up the hill and across in front of Walsh Field.
Yes.
Some temporary stuff put in there.
Yeah.
But WCAT will be able to operate under this, just reiterating, in this location, because I actually had someone ask me that question the other day. And I said, no, they're building it first and then this will be knocked down. Okay. As far as the cost of the fiber connections, I don't have a real update on that. However, I am very confident that we're gonna be able to. That.
Excellent.
Okay.
That was very good. I have not been able to poke the government liaisons of the cable committees, cable companies yet, only because the one that I did have, the ones I do have are no longer the ones that are apparently doing their job. So now I have to find the ones. And I've also got to find the time to. It's been a busy couple of weeks. So that is still on my list to do, but was not complete.
Okay. All right. Anything else on relocation to the high school? Of the high school?
So when do we think the project's gonna be done and how do we anticipate the estimated 260,000, the payment timing, if we're gonna start, the construction? I'm assuming, not right away, but any insights as to when we have to plan for that money to come out of our bank account?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but completion and move-in isn't planned until 2027?
January of 2027 is the projected move-in date for students and faculty.
Okay,
I would think that, schools are so slow. They'll be doing all the drainage and the groundwork for, seem like a year, and then all of a sudden the steel will go up.
yeah,
But really, I don't think WCAT's money comes into play until they start, doing things within the shell that is being given. So my guess is I certainly wouldn't count on anything until calendar year 26 would be my guess.
Okay.
Nothing in 25.
okay.
Based on the conversations. we've had, that's about
But
right.
we can,
Yeah, I don't need to know anything more than that.
6-month
at this
update
point.
is good. A 6-month warning is okay with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
I
We're
think
good,
Things
we're
tend
good
to
on
move
that.
slower
Yeah,
than they are, steel doesn't show up.
sure.
Paul, for our end of it, and my expectation on expenditures would be 2025, only because we may buy stuff now before any price hikes go up on that particular equipment. But that's on our side, not the school side.
Okay.
We do store it.
Yeah, where will you warehouse it in the meantime?
Whoever we buy it from, we'll just hold on to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, because the expectation, especially for computer chips over the next 5 years, is supposed to increase anywhere from 7 to 12%, I think, was the last guess I heard. There are certain things that I think we really want to buy now. So that we have them.
All right, thanks.
Okay, anything else?
No.
All right. Steve sent out the other day a draft. One request I would have, Steve, anytime we send out a document that's for discussion, let's clearly mark it draft,
Okay,
please.
Yep.
Okay. So we have the piece. Amy, do you need a copy
I
of it?
got it right here.
Oh, you have it right there, okay.
see, Amy's an old hand at Govenda.
Love
Comment
Govenda.
everything.
Have I told you I hate technology? All right, let's go through it point by point if we can, please. Going around the table, anyone have any comments to make? On the first section, sub items, 1 through 5.
Good. We got a question about just clarifying what we're specifically saying with number 5, where we're going to try to enjoy economies of scale in completing our area. What's the concept there?
Well, if I can get someone else to pull the water and not charge us for things. Thinking that, like, I don't want you to have to do, if I can get them to bring the fiber to the school
Mhm,
and bring the fiber to WCAT, right?
yeah,
That's a cost savings.
okay. So,
That's what I'm trying to
I
do.
think we're confused, not confused, but what we're asking for clarification is this something that we should be overlooking? Or is this something that the town is overlooking, or is the school department supposed to? overlook
I
it?
think that-
Who's looking at what?
I think we need to,
Okay.
you and me,
Oh,
need to, talk to the firm in the building committee.
I see it, I say it.
Exactly,
Kind of thing.
and I'm gonna tell them, listen, Chip Tarbell. Have them pull the wire over there too, they're already there, it costs nothing.
Right, right.
so do everything that needs to be done in one shot, rather than having it
Exactly.
filed for multiple times, because we know that costs more money.
And the
Just-
same contract. I mean,
Yeah, same
they're
contractor.
doing everything else, they're doing drops everywhere else.
Yeah.
Pull whatever we can and do at the same time.
Okay,
Okay.
is our understanding that we're gonna be receiving what I call a move-in quality space, carpet, painted, bathrooms. And obviously we would be responsible for furnishing and, that kind of stuff.
You're responsible for all furnishing and fixtures.
Don't fall out when you turn it upside down.
No, but the build out itself, because
The
when,
build out is just,
Yeah, it's like if you were going to rent a space, so
Right.
there should be sinks, there should be toilets,
that's about
there
it.
should be lights,
Okay.
there
Yeah.
should be.
I don't know about carpeting,
Should that be added then to
I-
that number 5?
thought
I
carpeting
think
was-
if we're.
it may be, I don't know offhand, because I
Yeah.
haven't checked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I
it's a
think
good
that
idea
is-
to be more specific on that, Amy. So something along the lines,
Yeah.
our
My
that's our
understanding was also it
expectation
was
that,
going to include certain specialty items like soundproofing in the studios. Because they're already doing all of the musical departments, that would be one of those things. that
Yeah,
we're
but yeah,
talking
they're already doing that, so.
They're already doing the musical departments, so our rooms would be a small add-on for that.
and make sure they soundproof in the ceiling too, so we don't get, the pounding of
Oh, the
rain.
basketball,
No,
No,
or the rain.
the pounding
I
of
don't
rain.
think you're in the, I don't think you'll get the pounding in the rain.
it's not in this one.
I think there's floors above, so.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
No, there's actually, there are no.
No floors above, you sure?
Yeah, the district offices and us don't have a floor.
Okay.
All right,
so
so,
would you propose that we modify that to be Amy?
We could say it is our understanding that the area will include a built out space ready for move-in with whatever fixtures we think are gonna be there.
Okay, I like that idea.
okay. All right. And do we know who the direct liaison will be? Steve?
Is Steve and Ian working together? Or, do you mean the liaison
You
directly
and,
to
you
the
and Steve,
contractor?
or,
I think it would probably be myself and either Tom for left field unless you want.
No, it can be Ian because he should, I'm not gonna know if they come in and say,
Okay,
I'll be your backup. If they give you.
but I think,
So I will interact with left field.
Yeah.
So that's either Tom or Lynn, thank you.
all right, so for clarity's sake, that should probably
Yeah,
I think
be
that's-
defined in
I
here.
think so too.
Yeah.
There is a Tom, but he's from
Yeah.
the design firm.
SMMA?
Interact with,
Okay.
All right, for clarity's sake, Steve, I think that should be in the document, please.
So we're saying that Ian will be in regular communication with Lynn from Left Field.
Yeah.
Where she's gonna need to update you that fiber is gonna be installed. And say, okay, well, let's make sure, the major elements that
My
so-
plan is going forward I'm going to ask them to include me in any of their regular meetings. So that I can be sitting in on them and listening to them and
that's
listening for
that's
everything.
that's a
that
good
might be-
idea.
you wanna get in on the working.
That's the one, yes, they did
Not
give
the-
me the
not
one
the-
recently,
Not about larger.
yes, working group ones.
Okay. Anything else anyone can think of in this first section of 5?
So I'm adding a section 6 as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, please. Okay. Let's go to working group findings 1 through 5. Anyone around the table with comments, questions, ideas?
Well, I've provided some supplemental information to address 4 and 5. I think that's something we should look at from a, financial projection point of view. I'm not sure that, well, I am sure that looking at the reserve in aggregate is not the correct way to do it because we have an operating fund and we have a capital fund. And I'm not the government accounting expert and Kevin's not here, but as far as I know, if we have an excess in operating, I don't believe we can reallocate that to capital. That's something I'd like to get clarification on in terms of fund accounting.
That particular one, I am not familiar with on that one, I do know capital cannot be used for operation.
Now,
No.
are we talking about capital that was specifically provided by the cable companies?
Yes,
For that purpose?
yes,
We're talking about, we have two reserve funds, a capital fund and a operating fund.
Right, but my question is relating to the source of those funds. If the capital fund is monies that were provided to WCAT by the cable companies specifically for capital as outlined in the contract, then you're correct. It cannot be moved from one to the other under any circumstances.
And so the inverse, if it's provided specifically for non-capital,
Cannot be moved into capital.
and for that reason, we can't look at the reserves as an aggregate. We have to look at both of these as separate
Right,
funds.
so they
So
need,
why don't we-
to be defined separately.
why don't we change 4 under there? WCAT enjoys operating reserves, and you can comment on that.
Yeah.
In a minute,
Mhm.
and capital reserves pursuant to the forecast attached. And I'll attach this to.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
So I have a question on that, then, based on those things, if we're looking at the $260,000 for the buildup. I mean, the last numbers that I had when I was still getting numbers, that's gonna pretty much wipe out the Ameriprise and cooperative and the capital account at the cooperative.
That's great. We will
Right,
be in a
so-
deficit.
Those
yeah.
assets will have to be. They'll be gone.
They'll be gone. Yes.
So the other part of that question is, just so I know, so Steve, basically, there's a town policy about the 10% of reserves.
Correct.
That wasn't something that was just done for CAT, that's something that's done for anybody else that has.
That's what we try to do at the town.
Right, that's what I meant,
Right.
but that wasn't just a carve for CAT, that's just what.
No.
we're Doing as a matter
No.
of practice.
No.
Exactly. I'm just
Okay.
stating that
Yeah.
that is our town
Yeah,
policy.
okay.
From,
Now, and the amounts are different. I mean,
Yeah.
because we're dealing with, $100 million budget, for lack of
Yeah,
a better.
no, I understand, yeah, I thought that's what you meant, I
Yeah.
just wanted to be sure.
yeah, the difference I think here is also that because WCAT is a 501c3, 3 it's not subject to the town policy.
Right, so-
It's not subject to the town policy.
Right, so-
It's not subject to the town policy. 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 It's not subject to the to
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, but
Yeah.
I think my.
I'm just
point-
trying to clarify.
Right. My point here is that if WCAT.
Yeah.
Let's say we got let's say we got a big grant, we didn't have to spend the 260. Something happened, we didn't have to spend the 260 there.
Yeah.
A lot of the problems have gone away. My point is here is that really where the town comes in, where the recommendations are below, the town really would come in or consider coming in, future boards would consider coming in if the reserve started to fall below a certain amount.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, not necessarily 10%,
mm-hmm,
and I didn't put in 10% because I think it's a different animal,
mm-hmm.
because it's not, So I put in as a discussion point, 20%.
Mhm.
That the recommendations, now maybe people are comfortable about something we can talk about here, but that was my point for putting that in.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
So it was 600,000.
I think before we get into the detail, before we get into the words here, we have to look at the financial projection that was sent subsequently. I don't know.
Well, let's
Came
finish
late.
with the first three
Let's
items
talk about the
first, and
first
then
three
we'll get
items
into the.
first. I would suggest.
All
we
right, so
kinda-
we don't get
Yeah.
hopelessly lost in the weeds.
Right.
So any comments on subsection 1?
No.
Are we talking specifically about the findings?
Findings, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so one comment I have here is we, it says that it's not as steep as what was once feared, but I don't think it really characterizes what the current rate is estimated to be. And I think one of the details we had in one of the previous meetings was that, some of those things just are bonuses, like for example, the healthcare costs, and that there's a lot of expenses that could come to bear very quickly. And so I think we should just be clear about, hey, it's when we say it's not as steep as once feared, do we mean like we're going to be in trouble in 10 years? Do we mean we're going to be in trouble in 20 years? It's not really clear from just reading the recommendation or the finding rather.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm talking about revenue was not being, decline in revenue was not steep.
Maybe you
Right,
just-
so the franchise fee and revenue, I think we should price, if we clarify that percentage decline in franchise fee revenue is not as steep as it had been in the past. Is probably, we've seen a lessening in the rate of
Right.
decline, which is
Right.
good. So I think if we say, if we clarify it, what kind of revenue and relative to what, instead of a fear.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that would be all we would need to do to make that something that someone outside the group would understand.
Okay.
So,
And if I could only, to make sure that everybody clears on, the only reason that is not still a steep issue is because of an unexpected employee change.
Well, there's two concepts here. The first, maybe we break it into
Yeah.
two findings. The first one is the franchise fee revenue decline is not as steep as it had previously been. Second point is that the anticipated loss, operating loss, is less than it was. It's really two separate concepts. Then I would break that into 2
Mhm.
points.
okay,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
perfect, okay.
Okay. All right.
Just a quick point, and I should have done this earlier on in these meetings, Steve. I wanted to thank, I actually ended up speaking to Victor for a couple of minutes because I was trying to get a sense of, with all the building that's going on. So we're not seeing an increase because of all the building going. You think, okay, people are moving into the, Karen Lane or the head of the lake, whatever, somebody's gotta have cable, maybe it won't be as fast. Anyway, I couldn't get it from what he gave me because it's like, a unit for him is different than what I was trying to
Right.
get, because housing units are the same, basically. The multifamily, the apartment buildings are different. But I think it still goes to show that with everything that's going on, even over the past few years, not even the ones that have come online yet, we're still not seeing an increase in that. So there's still not, there may be more cable subscribers, but they're not offsetting the loss by a long shot, right? So,
It's lessening the decline,
yes, it's
Yeah.
lessening.
because I think Kevin's estimate for fiscal year 25
Mm-hmm.
is a reduction in revenue of 2.32%.
Yeah, that was an initial draft. He and I talked
Right, no,
about
that
it
is an initial
yesterday.
draft, that's all.
Yeah, we had a conversation yesterday where we're seeing a little bit less than that, not materially less, you know, 1 point something rather than
So
2 point something.
Okay,
So it's, again, it supports the point that it's, the decrease is is smaller as a percentage basis year over year than what we'd seen in prior
Right.
years. Because we were thinking about 3.5, 3.5% decline, and that's what it had been. And the pandemic probably helped alleviate that to some degree. You know, people stuck in their homes and
Mhm, mhm.
so,
Although that was also when a lot of people were switching over to streaming too. So,
yeah, whatever it is, we know
Yeah.
it's less than it was previously, so I think we've got 1 or 2
I
nailed down on
think
that
it
one.
will be interesting to see, is Tarrant Lane, how many units are Tarrant Lane?
173, or is that just the SHI?
No, well, they all count, they all count.
Okay,
because it's
so I
40
thought it
feet.
was 173.
It is 173. So those units are currently being advertised for rent.
mhm.
So that's a big chunk.
That
It'll
is
be
big.
interesting to see what, what happens with that.
Mhm.
So I think we definitely still need to monitor
And the
it.
Foundry Street stuff too, I mean, this.
Yeah, there's another building at Foundry coming,
Right.
there's
Yeah,
the
there's-
Hesper Lake coming.
Right, so there might, anything would be a
Right.
help, to be sure.
Right.
And then just to kind of build on that real quick, because there's two different things going on. Would you mind just speaking briefly about your comment at the breakfast the other morning? And the response that you got, and then I got something from the guy that runs Mass Access to sort of maybe something.
So I brought up, I asked Senator Lewis, and I told him before I was gonna ask.
Just to put this into context, this was at the chamber
The chamber breakfast.
legislative breakfast.
They have a legislative breakfast every year.
Yeah.
And it is kind of the North Shore delegation comes. And Ian was there filming, gave him big kudos for that, and that's how I actually segued into it. And I asked how important, local cable is to the communities. And however, we do have a revenue issue as people are going to streaming.
Mhm.
What's happening with your streaming legislation? And the answer basically was, well, we need your help from MMA to help us. So I took this to believe that not a lot is happening up there right now in this session.
It is.
That's what
It's a slow session. Yeah.
So what I want to follow that up with, because that's part of this, Steve and I were talking about web machine.
Right.
So this is an email that came across to the Mass Access members yesterday, actually. It's from Dave Gauthier, who's, I'm not gonna read the whole email, but I'll read you what I think is pertinent. Says, just got done with a very productive meeting with the legislative team for an act to modernize funding for the community media program. His contact is Machino. That's all, he basically just deals with her, and yet he lives in Winchester. So he's a constituent of Lewis, almost never deals with him, just a personal stuff. So he goes on to say, as you know, we're at the point in the session where most of the work happens within the building. And because we don't want to give anything away, I can't tell you exactly who is talking to whom about what, but I can tell you this, the interest in this bill among legislators, state agencies, and outside organizations has never been high. So again, then he goes on to say, the deadline for a decision on this bill is April the 8th, and I'm hearing the AITIC, which is the joint committee, leadership is not interested in extending it further. We have less than a month to convince them to move it forward. So again, there's close to 50% of all legislators in some form or another have sponsored or co-sponsored both bills. And if you can't get it with that, it's gonna be, and it doesn't get released with a favorable recommendation coming out on April 8th, and it starts over again, I think you gotta change the plan and say, that's not how it's gotta be written. We gotta do something else.
Well, and
Because
also the
we-
start over again won't be until the next session,
That's
which
what I mean.
doesn't begin until January of next year.
Right, and that's what I mean, and at that point, you got, because they basically, the language in the bills have been the same for 3 sessions in a row.
Right,
They've gotten more co-sponsors every year, this year's the highest they've ever gotten, but if that language isn't working, they're gonna have to come up with something else. They're gonna have to follow some other model, and Ian has some thoughts on that too, but we don't have to do that tonight, because, time's important.
right.
It's
Well,
coming
that can
down to
be,
April.
that can be an offside conversation.
Yeah.
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 Okay,
So, again, like you said, she knows that. But if she wasn't.
She came to a committee I'm on at the MMA and did a fabulous job presenting her bill.
Yeah.
In the
Mhm.
House, and 1/5 of the streaming fees stays with the state.
Mhm.
2/5 goes to the local communities. So that's great. Why would Wakefield be against that? That's extra money for us. And 2/5 goes to the cable,
Mm-hmm,
provider,
mm-hmm,
the cable company,
Mhm.
local cable company. So that was great.
okay.
And it's gonna be on the cherry sheet, which is nice too.
Item 3, when are we getting the cherry sheet, by the way?
We have the initial one.
Okay. So we'll have that to talk about
Yeah, it's
next
not,
bill,
it's not.
okay. WCAT needs to expand membership and other forms of non-subscriber revenues.
I would
Um,
recommend that we just change the word expand to membership. We get $25 for an annual membership.
mhm,
So, we could, but we do need to expand other forms of non-subscriber revenue.
mhm,
So I would just take out expand membership and leave.
Well, that also opens the question, because originally membership in any access station was based on people who wanted to come in, learn how to make programming, get it up on the channel.
Correct.
And that, for a number of years, that was sort of a self-sustaining dynamic here in Wakefield and in other places. But now where people can make movies with their iPhones, that dynamic is pretty much gone, correct?
Yes, I mean, we probably have 25 to 30 individual and family memberships.
Yeah,
And so, we could triple that and feel good about expanding membership, but it doesn't address the financial matters.
right.
It's the non-subscriber revenues, it's the production of service income. That is the thing that the strategic planning committee is focusing on, that we're dedicated to focus on. So it's just a matter of taking the word membership out and say expand other forms of non-subscriber
You want to just
revenues.
change it, WCAT needs to increase non-subscriber revenues.
Yes.
What about grants?
I would say that's non-subscriber revenue. Non-subscriber revenue, to the
Okay.
extent we get a grant, it's, we can apply, but we don't manage the receipt.
Right.
We don't, but we do manage the pricing of the services that we provide, so.
Mhm, mhm.
So I do agree that grants need to be a primary focus, and as we've said before, we applied for the Cummings grant, which would be significant. If we can
Right.
get that.
Okay,
Want me to add a line about grants and game? Yes.
I think that
I
would,
think so.
I think it needs to be stated, yes.
Maybe I'll make that 4.
Is there a time frame, Norm, on when Cummings grants? Is it kind of a rolling process or is it?
No, there was a specific deadline that all applications had to be in by.
Decisions are in May.
May?
Decisions are made.
That's what I was wondering. Okay,
Okay.
it's good information.
And then the whole thing resets itself again in
September,
September,
Yes.
October.
usually, a lot of the grants do twice a year rounds. A lot of the major grants do twice a year rounds. Okay, let's go to subsection 4 under working group findings. WCAT enjoys total reserves of 852,900 as of 12/31/2023 on an annual budget of approximately 600,000. Town policy is to support reserves 10% of operating revenue. WCAT greatly exceeds that percentage. Comments, please.
Well, I think we already talked about this one. I was going to enjoys, revenues on enjoys reserves
Operating
on
reserve.
operating and capital reserves pursuant to the attached sheet.
Just making sure we didn't pass
Everybody
by.
good with that?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah, I
should.
think the only other addition is that that annual budget number is not accurate.
Well,
It says on an
again,
annual budget of approximately 600,000, that's the total.
Oh, and I'm gonna
revenue.
take that out. I'm gonna take all that out.
Okay, I was gonna say
Yeah.
600,000 is the total
Yeah.
revenues, including what goes to the
Yeah.
school,
And I will,
So 400,000.
less than that now.
But the total amount of the reserves, Norm, it basically is pretty fairly stated there. The 532 and the 315 on the attached sheet.
yeah, I think we should take a minute to go through the attached sheet and see if anyone has questions. Bill, do you have access to the attached sheet that is in the Govinda, or should I share my screen?
I think I have access to the attached sheet.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so let's just go through it. Top section is operating, bottom section is capital.
Yeah.
We talked about our actual, income for January through June. I'm sorry, June through December, and what we're forecasting for the second half of the year due to the changes. We come up with a slight profit of $23,000.
Okay,
The 532,000 is the cash reserve as of the beginning of the fiscal year. For the audited financial statements, that's something that we had looked at before.
And that includes CDs, Ameriprise, and actual checking balance.
Correct. So what we have a forecast for, well, I'll stay with the top section. I have done a rough estimate of what our fiscal 25 and 26 situation will be by essentially taking our base expenses and inflating them by a 3.5% inflation rate to take into consideration salary changes. Then I put on top of that the $30,000 of benefits that we feel we need to have as part of the group. It's not included in 2024. That's the expense assumption. For fiscal 26, now that we have the benefits in the pool, we're just looking at a 3.5% increase on that number. And I have this broken down on the separate sheet. On the income side, what I did there was, we really have two factors going on. We have the fact that we're gonna see a decline in franchise fee revenue, and hopefully it's a modest decline similar to what we've seen recently. And our estimate for this year is $430,000, not including the mass grant. Okay, I'm forecasting for the next year to be up $10,000. Now we're going to see a decline of a percentage or two on our biggest number. So that's indicating that we're forecasting that we're going to be increasing the non-subscriber revenues. I did the same thing for fiscal 25. So the revenue numbers go from an actual this year forecasted at 429, not including the grant from Caribbean. 429, 439, 459. So I'm showing revenues increase in an environment where cable revenues are going down. Again, we need to take into consideration that we're going to be increasing the non-subscriber revenues. And the expenses really rising with inflation. One other minor thing that I've included for next year is that we have 3 to 4 interns that have been doing great work for us. We're finding it difficult for interns to choose a fantastic learning experience for no pay versus flipping burgers at $15 an hour. So we believe that we should be paying our intern. This should be a paid intern program, something the board hasn't fully discussed. The impact is like $10,000, the expenses. So I've included that so that everyone knows no change in staff except having some paid interns. And that's the revenue assumptions. So that's where you get the $31,000 loss and the $47,000 loss. But even with that, we've got a healthy reserve fund of $477,000 at the end. In contrast, we have a much different situation. And this is one where you could apply a percentage of revenue to the reserve fund if you wanted to, where you certainly can't with capital, because our capital revenue is $42,000 going to $17,000. So the concept of percentage of revenue and capital fund, which is really where our issue is something that does not compute in here. So, I'm showing again, the beginning cash balance at the beginning of fiscal 24. We're receiving the $41,667. That's a combination of Verizon and Comcast. RCN got out of that by renegotiating back in the day. We have to pay our Telview loan in addition to paying for our expenditures. And we need to go ahead and I got a problem with my, oh yeah, okay. And then we also, anticipate, historically, we've been spending about $40,000 for capital equipment, about what we've been, again, trying to operate within our means
Per year.
per year. So that would take us from 315 down to 310. We see the same situation in fiscal 25, the 310 goes down to 285. Assuming that, we're gonna have more things that are going to, we're gonna probably run into more, a slightly increased capital funding need for equipment replacement. The real issue is fiscal 26, as you can see. We lose the Verizon capital, that's gone. 16,000 is all we get. We've still got to pay the loan, we've got the high school move. And then the important thing that I've learned from Ian is that, technology that we have for telecommunication runs through cycles. The analog to digital was a big cycle change. So that means all the equipment has to be now digital. Well, we're not, we anticipate that every, was it 7 years or so, Ian, 5 to 7 years?
Yeah, between the 5 and 7 years, you could stretch it to 10. It's becoming more difficult as computers become more the element that everything swings around, because when a new computer system upgrades, most of the old legacy stuff is left behind, so now they've got nothing that will connect.
Because they're not developing any backward compatibility.
Yeah, because it used to be that this cable with these two ends would plug into anything. Now it's an Ethernet cable, and if the software on here doesn't understand this,
So the timing of when that's gonna happen is unclear, but we have to deal with the reality that technology changes more rapidly every day. So we need to put something aside for that. And then we have what, I'll call our normal equipment replacement, and, perhaps that gets lessened if we're going through, transition, technological transition that I didn't take into consideration, but perhaps should. So you end up with $103,000 deficit because of the 260. And we, as a business, although we haven't talked about this at a board level, but Ian and I certainly have talked about the fact that we cannot operate without a reserve that's adequate to pay immediately for the outage of our two most critical transmission assets. If they go out and we don't have the money in our reserve, we're going to be borrowing or without, a solid balance sheet. So we feel like, the minimum from a company's point of view is to pay for the switcher and the Teleview machine, which are our two most critical assets for us to be able to broadcast as we do and as people expect us to. So I just put in around 200,000 as the need to bring us to the Teleview we just bought. It was about 65,000 plus, services and other stuff. So, we have a pretty current estimate of what the Teleview machine costs. So that's the view that I think we all have to think about. And you can see that this is why you can't talk about our revenues or our fund balances in aggregate. They have to be separated since there's no ability to transfer from one to the other.
Go ahead.
Norm, how, for the 24 estimate, I think you indicated you're doing 40,000 a year as an estimate. What's the actual been? Has the actual been consistently in that $40,000 range?
Yeah, last year was
prior
40.
years?
Yes.
And you're upping it by 50% to 60 and 25? Is that realistic, or is that?
We could put it in at 40, quite honestly. We've been at 40 for a couple of years in a row. We were greater than that a few years ago.
But we do have a upcoming cost because our main server, data server, is now almost 10 years old. And my IT guy has basically told me, you're now rolling dice every day as to whether or not it's going to continue to
What does that guy go for?
$30,000 at least.
When we get to 26, we've got the 260, and of course, we don't know if it's gonna be 270, 220, 280, whatever the heck.
Yeah.
Right.
But we've also got the 80 and the 60. So, I mean, is it really realistic to say that all those items are gonna be actual in the neighborhood of 400 grand that year?
Well, given the question about putting the question about 260 aside. The technology upgrades is, again, we're looking into the future about what is that technology upgrade gonna be? Is it significant as analog to digital? Probably not. What I would say is that, I would say that, and I mentioned this briefly, that the 60 sort of normal equipment replacement could be much less. Could be lessened because you're gonna be doing an upgrade of all the equipment. So I think that that's a good point, that probably wouldn't be 60 in the normal equipment breaking down category.
And
So-
one of the elements to that, as I'm sure Steve may remember, is back in probably 2017 or so, we did a major upgrade in here, which was about $68,000 worth of equipment. That is, of course, now getting on to 7 years by the time we're getting to 2026. That is the typical end life, so there is the expectation that a number of what was put in then is now going to need to be replaced.
So do you see the 80 plus the 60 and the 140 as being a realistic potential actual number?
Yes. I would say that that is the maximum.
Okay. Okay. Then the next question is if the 200 is really a catastrophe kind of fund, right? If one of the major elements,
The remaining
Right.
100, the remaining 96,000, we're saying that we need 96,000 in the
96.
balance
right?
to cover the two pieces of equipment as a catastrophe fund, absolutely.
So let me ask you the obvious. If there's still, if the projections are all accurate and
Mhm.
they become reality. And there's an estimated operating fund balance of 477, 232.
Mhm.
If you move that 200 of that down here, does that give you not enough to operate?
That was the point that we made at the beginning of the discussion, that we don't believe that monies that were paid by the cable companies to run the operations can be moved by us independently to say, we need it over here as capital. You guys are giving us a piddly amount for capital, and that's something that I can call Gordy Maloney, our CPA. I would love to find that that's the answer.
So none of the current capital balances have come from, if you will, our funds. It's all been, and I believe the chair asked this question earlier.
Yeah,
All of this money has always been from the cable companies for capital. We haven't moved anything into capital.
no, we have never done that.
Okay,
No, and when I was on the board and president, we weren't able legally to do that under any circumstances whatsoever. Because that did come up several times in board meetings.
Now, going forward, recently we asked this question. Can we take money that we've gotten as services rendered from a corporation?
Mm.
Where are we allowed to use that? And the current thought is that that money can be put either in operation or capital, because it was not given a earmark for one. or the other.
Yeah, we wanna
Subject to
clarify
a
that.
decision by the board.
Yes,
Yeah, I think one of the things that we were thinking about is that membership contributions, in voluntary contributions that people make from the community, money that we earn from from other fundraising activities. When you click on the button, donate on the website, make it very clear, donations for WCAT Capital Fund. And all that money could go, so that's one of the things that we definitely are doing. The piece I'm a little unclear about is if we're using our capital assets to provide operating services, is that a 50-50? Is it all, so we need clarification on that.
So my
so-
question would be to kind of glom onto Mike's. If the teleview goes down, right, that's one of the catastrophic events.
Right.
65 grand to replace,
65 to 75.
65, whatever, 75. Why wouldn't I just pay for that out of operating? I can't operate without it.
Because
If I had to hire- if I
it's
had
a
to-
capital purchase
So-
by definition.
mean, there's
Well,
probably
how do
policies
you
around.
operate the
Yeah, I
town?
mean, it's a
You
policy.
pay-
I don't think it's a legality.
I'm not sure that that's the case.
I mean,
think I think
I'd
I
like
go
to
back,
see, yeah.
I'd like to go back to the franchise agreements. Where they say, we're gonna give you capital money and we're gonna give you operating money. And you do whichever you want with it. If that was the case, here's the money we're gonna give you, do whatever you want. They're very specific in those franchise agreements. This is the capital amount, this is the operating
No,
amount.
I understand going the other way. I understand robbing capital money that's specifically for capital, and you use that to hire whatever, hire
Yeah.
personnel for something. I get that.
Yeah,
But for an operating issue,
But is it an
I wonder,
operating?
I'd have to see. I'd have to. look
I
at
think-
it.
I think we should
That
make
might,
it.
that might be a gray area. Is
Yeah.
Bill still on the board?
Carol?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might wanna ask him
Yeah.
that question
I mean, I think
and
that
get
we
his legal opinion.
But I think to Steve's point, I think what you're ending up with is a Peter and Paul situation.
No, I get that. I get that. I'm.
So.
I mean,
taking
clearly
that
our financial
just makes it less
situation, if
likely
we can
you
do
have
that,
Full years.
we've
worth
got
of
a much
functionality.
different,
You have more flexibility. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So I
would
think
agree,
there's
you
a
could-
follow-up
You
item.
may not be able to take it out of operating and park it in capital.
Hmm.
I kind of agree with that.
All right,
in
may
analysis.
I suggest that we set this point aside for this meeting and ask
Right.
Paul and Ian to explore with Bill what the legalities are about moving that money around, how it can be done, if it can be done, and what the mechanisms are, and then report back at the next meeting, please.
I mean, does the DPW have a capital fund for the snow plows or? is it an
That's
operating
municipal,
fund?
it's different than 501.
Well, we have
Oh, okay.
a,
All right, then,
we have a snow and ice budget. We also have a capital budget,
okay,
right?
all right, so I guess the key point that Dave is making is that this may be an apples and oranges thing, so I
Right.
don't want to get sidetracked
The
on
rules of municipalities differ from the rules of 501c3s.
that. Okay.
And this
Okay.
is nothing against Bill, obviously, but I'd go to Mahoney and Ferentino and say, look.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
No, I'm calling Gordy in the morning.
Yeah, this is. I think, you gotta go to, because, you wanna make sure that your accounting firm is gonna.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because they're gonna have,
right,
they're
right.
gonna have
Call them in the
to
morning.
sign off on your financials.
Right.
So, yeah.
Sign
Yeah.
off on the
Yeah.
opinion.
Right.
And I know from practice, any money that we get coming in, I have to write a notation of where it's going.
yeah,
So if somebody donates money and they say
That's
it's
a-
for this,
That's a separate issue.
so.
that's different than,
If
than
that's a
specifically what we're
donation
talking
you're
about
accepting
here.
For specific.
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm saying if we're getting to that level of detail in
Right.
501c3,
Yeah.
then I really don't wanna take that.
All right,
That would be good to know. because-
but let's set this point aside until the next meeting, pending what's found out.
The Cummings grant that you talked about, is that for capital?
That is for operating.
I think there's a combination. We had to, yeah, because we were talking about the mobile, we were talking about the mobile
You're
studio.
right, yes.
So so we had to talk about what we're gonna do with it, and it's
Yeah.
basically, expand our reach.
And I think we
Highlight
did,
human need interest stories like the Inspire Cafe.
Mhm.
And, more outreach on, what are what are the great things that are happening in our community and others that people need to be aware of, and this was an operating cost and,
I
studio.
think we did a 50-50.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
had to articulate how that would be funded.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we'll look for a report on that at the next meeting
Okay,
before we close that particular item,
good.
okay? And, all right, does that take care of everything in working group findings? Anything we
I
missed?
think on 5,
Yeah,
I would take out the last sentence under the current 5. We're gonna put a new 4 grants. So
Right.
everything will drop down.
so it'll be 6,
6,
yeah,
WCAT has budgeted 260,000 for the new studio build up at high school.
period. Okay,
Okay.
everyone agree with that?
And when you.
Any problem with that idea?
Not from, Bill, you all right with that?
Oh, that was just me coughing. No, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Okay,
Are we going to be putting a new, more accurate number than the 600,000 in the annual budget?
I think we're just gonna refer somehow to the exhibit.
I'm gonna take all that. I'm just gonna
Okay.
talk to the, for the.
okay. Anything else on this section, working group findings?
Not for me.
Okay, recommendations.
Percentage.
Let's start with sub item one, WCAT develop a robust plan of chargeback models to users. As well as explore advertising, sponsorship and marketing revenues. We've touched on that in other discussions tonight. Anything to add to that?
I would ask that the word advertising be taken out, because that's just a red flag for us.
Well, you can't do advertising for a 501c3.
Well, that's why I
Exactly.
want to take that out, and the
Yeah.
word marketing as well. So it's really, I think we're gonna develop a robust plan to generate production service revenues by providing services. You know, the
And
chargeback
sponsorship.
models, I think we clarified that, make that more clear to say, we're going to develop a plan to provide television production services to local corporations and explore increased sponsorship revenue.
Is there any reason why we
Fine with
don't
that?
use the word underwriting in there?
We're good. Yes, if we could use underrating.
Instead of sponsorships.
Underwriting, yes, you could use. Yeah, by definition of a 501c3.
Yeah, so
Underwriting,
underwriting and
always.
sponsorships. You recommend we put both of those in, Bill?
I turned that off.
I'm just saying underwriting because it sounds less tedious than saying, explore partnerships with corporations, da 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 da. And then like one quick comment since I'm already talking. I thought there was already like a robust chargeback model for extra work. Is that not accurate?
That's not accurate. We basically, we currently, we are in a situation where if a company wants to join, instead of the $25 individual membership, they can pay something like 100 or 200 or 300 to have a bronze, silver and gold. And where an individual can pay $25 and have access to the studio and the production equipment and the resources here, that's generally for, occasional things. We found that some corporations like to do, was it 2 shows a month?
2 shows a week in some cases.
Okay, so we have some corporations that are paying $300 and they're getting as many as
104
50 plus shows
Yeah,
that are all on us to produce.
yeah.
Clearly an out of balance between value and receipts. So that is that's topic number 1 at the strategic planning committee that we had between our last meeting and this meeting. We have to change that significantly. We're talking more about you get a discount if you're silver, gold, or bronze. At the gold level, you get a higher percentage discount on the services than you do at the bronze level, but you don't get it for free.
Do you think that nuance is captured in this sentence here? I don't know how you put it.
Generally saying we're going to develop a plan to increase production services income. We need to do more production work for nonprofits, local companies. We talk about the Sweets or Lecture series, for example. We broadcast that for free because they're a nonprofit and we're a nonprofit.
Right.
They get value out of that, and that's just an example of our attitude had been, if a nonprofit in town needs some help and they need us to broadcast something, sure, we're here to help them. But that was all well and good when we were in a declining revenue situation.
Yeah, and then that brings up the question of how do we balance that, because we obviously have the money that we have coming in to function, which is supposed to allow us to help the town and to perform services for the town. At what point do we say that, okay, that money is done? Now, if something else is wanted, somebody's got a foot bill. I thought it's very difficult for me to say, sorry, no, unless you pay me for it,
Mhm,
or yes, we can do that.
mhm.
Yeah, so that's a
That's
challenge.
another one of the things that our strategic group is looking at, is trying to get some sort of a framework around that.
Yeah, clearly some things are gonna be grandfathered in. And, we just are not gonna change the deal for the library, as an example. Grandfather that in, but again, this is all the challenge that we're dealing with the planning committee of, how do we effectively transition?
Take over for a minute. I've got to answer this because it's a family emergency.
Vice Chair will.
And there you go.
What am I doing?
Run the meeting.
Because it's a question of, okay, if I've got a 300-hour work week. And 200 of those hours are now taken up doing commercial work. Now I only have 100 hours for town-related things to do, or vice versa. So in one way or the other, we're ignoring one of them.
Well, I would say that you're dealing with the reality of the operations and you deal with that every day, because sometimes you have out of balance conditions just with our normal situation. Some weeks are heavy, some weeks are light, but it's important for us to make it clear that there's no such thing as free WCAT broadcasting on a go-forward basis, but we're gonna, treat certain people, organizations in a special manner. And we just need to try to keep as many people happy as we can. Some people aren't gonna be happy, but we just have to deal with the reality of, go find someone else to do it for free. Then they're gonna come back knocking on our door
Right.
that, okay, I guess you guys do have the best deal in town.
Because if I have a company rent the studio for a day. And then Steve calls me and says, we have an unexpected meeting that we need to cover. Do I tell this company, I'm gonna have to take your time away? I'm never gonna get another job from you if I do that.
Yeah, those are the things we've
We
been
do
talking
that
about
at
with having.
expected meeting if it ever happens by Zoom, so you don't have to do it.
Now,
Now we do.
Yeah.
now we.
So that may not be a circumstance that is quite so fraught as it used to be.
Right.
No, but it is still
It's still a
a valid
possibility.
situation of anything.
Well, actually,
If
that,
I need to take, if somebody runs my camera here.
right.
Well, I think that's something your plan is gonna have to.
Yeah, that's right. Those are
So
the
they-
challenges, so we don't need to solve those now.
So I
Keep-
say
yeah.
that sentence, what I have, I'm listening, and I did not work in the word underwrite, so maybe I need some help there. WCAT develop a plan to increase production services income from commercial and nonprofit entities. That's all I got
Mm-hmm,
from what you said. I don't know if you want more or less.
I think it's great.
Okay.
mm-hmm.
You had underwrite in there?
I
Bill?
think maybe it's another point,
Place
in
it's
addition,
Yeah, I mean, the underwriting was like
in addition, increased funds.
Can you speak up, Bill? I couldn't hear you. Go.
yeah, we're saying underwriting could be used interchangeably with sponsorship if we wanted to use that word, but if we're not using sponsorship, we don't
Okay.
need it.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Perfect. Okay, so that sentence is good for there.
All right,
Number one, okay.
okay. All set on that one?
Yep.
Let's go to WCAT, Town Council and the Town Administrator monitor and lobby the various streaming bills with NI, not and I. Towards funding local cable operations, huh? I do a lot of proofreading over the course of a week, believe me.
You got it. You didn't say anything till tonight.
Shows you how well I read it when I got it.
It's not,
Um,
it's not an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
No problems with that for that.
Okay.
Okay, 3, Town Council explore the possibility of utilizing tax levy funds. Should WCAT reserves fall below $120,000 or 20% of budget? Should that be stated as or 20% of budget, or is that in fact 20%?
I think the 20% should be taken out completely.
Okay,
We could do 100% of the capital fund, and I got a $40,000 reserve. Or
yeah,
$16,000 reserve. So that
Yeah.
concept as it relates to capital and a percentage is something that we can't put in here. This would be where we should say something along the lines of, whatever we find out about the transference of funds, that would be
Right.
a recommendation.
yeah,
What come into here, but I think the thing that I want to get on the table is that I would like to think that this committee could, the outcome of this committee is going to solve the unanticipated long-term issues that is going to be faced by cable access television. In other words, is there such a thing as a town policy that's adopted by the town council that says we are going to it's our intention to create a funding source that will address the business needs. What I'm getting at is when the town council changes over completely in 10 years, and you got a new town council set of membership in there, and they explore the possibility and say, you know, well, we did it before, but you know, we're not going to agree to this. So I'd like to think that this committee's work is taking into consideration the town needs, the community's needs, and our needs, and establishes something that we think will last for a reasonably long period of time.
That I think is probably not enforceable because town policy, I haven't supported all of our policy. Steve knows, we can only vote against the naming policy. The problem is that you can't buy it. Whoever's coming after us.
Yeah.
Doesn't change any policy.
Right.
Somebody
Okay,
raises a motion, any given meeting. You know, and gets 4 out of 7 votes, that policy has changed.
Is there any way
The
to
other
do it
issue
from
is
the
that-
town meeting level?
The funding would have to come from town meeting, that was the other. It'd have to be voted on by town.
So
well,
could-
it's, it isn't, yeah, I wasn't sure how funding works with, you know, if we consider like a reserve, like the snow removal budget, that you put a reserve in there, and you might have to go higher or lower, you know, they vote on the reserve, and, you know, I don't know, I understand the mechanics, and I don't think we may not even need to have this discussion if we're able to do the transferring. But what I would like to do is to perhaps say that you know, what I don't want to lose is the efforts that we're all making here on our free time to come up with a solution that works well for everybody. So if the recommendation was that you know, the recommendations and the policy that's adopted is in effect until a new committee is formed to do a new evaluation, rather than just someone say, okay, I want to raise a motion 4-7, 4-3, we're done. And again, I don't know the mechanics. You guys can help me out.
is there something that can be done at town meeting level?
Town meeting sets budgets for the year,
Right,
so if.
but they also
were
set policy too,
Warren.
in
Not-
certain cases.
Not on funding,
No, but on the relationship between WCAT and the town of Wakefield.
what does town meeting do for that?
Well,
Nothing.
that's, okay, so there's nothing that could formalize what's being done here that would be town council proof.
I don't know what town meeting could do, could someone create a bylaw? I don't even know that, because it wouldn't have
Yeah,
any teeth.
that I
It's
would
not
doubt it
funded,
could go
it's
that
not
far,
funded.
right?
Um,
So I
Just
think
gonna
the
get
answer to
the
your
question.
question is no, it couldn't be done.
Well, I think it would be a shame if, you know, a new committee comes in and says, okay, I'm voting 4-3, we're done.
Mhm.
I think it might, one idea might be, and I'm not trying to steer this. Is that, I mean, I don't think we've reached the critical point yet,
Right,
where this insurance policy, I know what you want.
Mhm.
I know you want the insurance policy,
Mhm.
where that's really right. And maybe instead of meeting every month, and talking about. No offense to everybody, kind of the same things over and over. Maybe we don't disband,
Mhm.
but we make it every 2 months, every 3 months, come in, recheck. Keep ourselves active.
Well, I think that's what number 4
That's
is.
number 4.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the point though, that I think what I'm hearing from Mike may be that if this is a standing committee that advises the town council on how to provide the best services to the members and therefore future town councils have the benefit of a committee that's assessing the situation and making their best judgment based on the situation,
mhm.
then I think in that scenario, my concern is alleviated. Because I think my concern would be alleviated.
so take out 3 and just keep this as a committee.
Yeah, I think we definitely don't know about that reserve transfer thing, but yes, I'm getting at the point that that I don't want a carefully deliberated, considered issue to be just wiped off the face of the earth
Right.
without careful consideration. So if the committee exists in some form or fashion as a town committee. That has a charter of providing insight, in council to the town council, then I think that would be great.
I think that's probably the way I'm leaning, it's. You know, I was kind of surprised last meeting when the chair brought up, well, what are we doing here? You know, and I kind of sat back and said, well, what is it we're doing? And part of the answer is, we've really now, I think. There's a lot of changes here, but we drove down to
Mhm.
where are we at this point in time? If your concern is a bunch of new people, some, reinventing the wheel, some future date with a different mixture of town councilors.
Yeah.
This would give the continuity potential.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to get out of meetings. But I really don't know that monthly is necessary right now.
I don't think
It's
it's
more
either.
monitoring the situation. When we reach that critical mass, I think we all
Right.
think and know really that we're gonna reach it. And when that happens, then we act,
Mhm.
and then our example is much more concrete.
Okay, well, that also brings into subsection 4.
And do you have
I
something?
do, yeah, I do. have
Oh,
one question.
sorry, go ahead.
With relation to 3,
Yeah,
in talking about the essence of that, but the exploring of the funds. Steve, can you explain to me, what's the relationship between the town and MGLD?
Kind of like we're
Is that
utilities,
related- Is that a relationship in some manner that could be?
MGLD
used in
is a
this?
town-owned corporation.
It is an independent, town-owned corporation, not owned or controlled by the town council. There is a separate board of commissioners that is
Yes.
elected. They have their own books. They charge us for streetlights. We do process their some of their benefits because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we charge them back for that.
Yep.
Service, and they pay for their benefits.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like the water and sewer department, which is a town department. Of the town.
Right.
So they have completely separate books, they have
Right.
completely, your light bill, gas bill that you pay never comes into the town.
Right.
General fund coffers at all.
Plus,
So
correct me
they are-
if I'm wrong, but at the end of each fiscal year, whatever certain percentage of overages is voted by annual town meeting to come back into the town.
Right,
treasury.
they also pay us a payment in lieu of taxes program. That they pay us taxes like.
Yeah.
Brightview does.
Mhm.
Which is really more of a fixed number.
Yes, yeah, it's not even,
Did we get into 1 million yet?
it's close, is it this year, 981 or something?
So those are the,
Right.
it's not intention, but it's a difference. They're totally independent. They have independent elected commissioners,
Right,
independent budget. We don't control the salaries.
Now, what happens
Are
if
they
they have a
operating at a
disaster?
break even? Is
Does
that
the town come to their aid?
They're supposed to, I think, by law,
just
more or less.
try to operate break even?
even.
Okay,
But
So-
you know how tricky that is. You're an accountant.
yeah, that's right, but I mean, in general,
If they're,
that's the.
if they're investing in the solar on top of the new high school.
Right,
And they're coming out of pocket for that, well, they're spending money, but they're spending money to make money,
Yeah,
and it's kind of like the water and sewers fund,
Right.
because, heaven forbids it rains, then people won't have to water their lawns, we make. Water and sewer makes more money
mhm,
when the sun is out.
Yeah.
exactly.
And just some strange
yeah,
interactions.
Well, and also by the same token, WMGLD is investing in the energy park, which is
Yes.
going to be going up out here, that
Yes,
will be fed by the 2 new schools.
right,
Yeah.
But so-
or will feed.
my question for our discussion by the group would be, is there in some fashion that template that might function for this?
My short answer is no,
So I have a quick question.
because of the independence, too.
But
Do you want the town council to be the board that runs you guys?
well, it sounds like the WMGLD has a separate.
Yeah, but
board of commissioners. Figurehead.
yeah, but we're not giving the money either, we're not looking at it either.
Okay, all right, I was just thinking that, in the scenario that we have a hurricane that comes through and knocks down 50% of the poles.
Yeah.
They're clearly gonna be in a deficit, they don't have the money. Where's that come from?
Ratepayers.
So, okay,
Ratepayers and probably, you know, emergency from the state or federal government.
okay.
Well, but
So it doesn't really fit the model, it doesn't really fit
No,
what we're talking
probably
about at all.
how does
That
that
was my
fit in with
curiosity.
the significant number of poles that are owned in the town by Verizon, for instance?
Well, most of them are joint, but there are some that Verizon owns and
Yeah,
they'll have to make it work.
but if a Verizon pole goes down, it's Verizon's responsibility, not the town's?
Well, I tell you, if we've got electrical stuff on that, we're gonna make sure it gets back up quicker than Verizon will.
Okay.
We'll work with them.
Okay, can we get back onto our
Yeah,
agenda here?
I know.
We got.
I digress.
We got,
I wanna-
yeah. We're down, we're minus.
We're 11 minutes after Steve's request, so I'd like to,
On trying to put something in, make it formal. At one time, I understand there was a contract between the town and CAT that said we would provide town council coverage, school committee coverage. And town
no, that was never in writing. That was the understanding between WCAT and the town. The only thing in the contract, if I remember correctly, that was actually in writing was the so-called poison pill, which I got rid of in the round of contracts in 2008.
I thought there was something at one point that said.
I think in the contracts with the cable companies.
With RCN.
RCN did have a section that was
Did they?
signed by, there was an addendum to the RCN agreement. It was between the president of WCAT and the town. RCN may have been a party to that.
Mhm.
That agreement got amended, but the WCAT was never included in the amendment to a contract they were a party to. So.
Well, the problem was WCAT was never a signatory to any of the contracts.
I know I've seen a
My
contract,
understanding is
WCAT
where-
signature is on a RCN agreement.
Yeah,
That was the agreement.
that was after me.
That was the agreement. that-
Right, so to
Right.
come back to whatever the original question was, if there was some way we could make this last longer. Is there, so because town councils will turn over, you know, you only need a majority, you know, so you can change the policy, but if you had a contract. About what was required, and in that contract it said if there's a shortfall, then this might happen. I'm just asking, I don't know, but.
Well, I can tell you with specificity that the contract at RCN 1999 to 2009 Exhibit 2 is the agreement by and among WCAT, RCN, and the town of Wakefield Board of Selectmen.
I'm not even asking about RCN contracts, I'm just.
All I'm saying is that we had a
Yeah,
contract.
that was.
That is the only contract that I'm aware of where related to the franchise fees, where WCAT was a party to the agreement in a separate subsection. And since we are the provider, it seems to me, I've always thought that was a bad thing, that we didn't have some kind of contract in the franchise agreements. It says, you know, the town is not able to go ahead and contract with Saugus to do their work, whatever. Again, we're getting a little off the topic here, but
Yeah.
it does get into the point about how do we try to make the work that we're doing here have some kind of a longer term survival, which I
That
think
clause was taken out in that, because I was involved in that at the time in 2009. Because WCAT was not a legal signatory to the contract, it was unenforceable anyway, so it was
Interesting.
just taken out. Because
Okay.
the contract was strictly between the
Yeah,
town
right, it's an exhibit.
and the
contract
cable
there.
entity, and anything mentioning WCAT was unenforceable.
Well, I think
Although-
Brian's
although
point,
they
he's
did
just
sign.
asking, is that something we can do now?
A new contract.
A new
You're
contract
talking
between
about
us
a
and
new
the town.
contract between the town
And
and
us,
CAT.
yes.
I mean, it might not make sense, I mean, it might be convoluted to try and do it, but I mean, if we're looking at something that's, you know, we don't want to involve town meeting, you know, you don't want to be necessarily at risk for changes in composition of town council and those kinds of things, so if there's something that says this is what we've agreed on, I'm just asking, I don't, you know, it's getting too late to talk about it long now.
Yeah, let's get to the last item. I think I've got a couple of changes there, but I do think that anything that we can do that allows us to feel confident that there won't be a strike with a pen, things are different.
Steve, let's put that idea under advisement for the next meeting. And let people think about it and come back with their feelings. I think it would be pushing it too much to try and come to a decision tonight.
Is that something that you could ask Billy about? Billy Carroll.
Yeah.
That seems more Mrs. Bailey than.
Yeah.
Capital
Yeah,
versus
Yes, yeah,
operating.
yes, yeah. Do you want to talk?
I will do.
Okay. All right.
Good. Another
Okay.
item that might be interesting that I wouldn't want to talk about in detail at this meeting since we're way over, but I'm curious, like, what the, like, you know, if it's possible, for example, to create like a permanent endowment or something at town meeting, since that would be like a one-time thing. I don't know how realistic that is, but I'm just curious about it.
Put it on the list. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. Let's take a look at it.
I mean, we
Again.
have, we have a lot of warrants, it could, I suppose in theory, there could be a separate warrant. And then it would have to come, I assume, from the tax levy.
Yeah.
So that would be something that would probably get a fair amount of discussion,
Yeah.
as all warrants do.
That's why annual town meeting is so much fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun this year.
Okay,
Many nights
the
to enjoy.
last item, subsection 4, WCAT working group meet quarterly to review financials and progress in other areas, as well as provide updates to the town council. Thoughts on that?
What I'd like to propose is that we do not say that we need to meet quarterly. But the way I view it is that we have an obligation, the WCAT as a corporation has an obligation to provide to this group audited financial statements every year. So there's no question what the capital fund is, what the operating fund was, what the expenses were, and a budget for the following year. And usually our audit is around September or October, August or September timeframe. We do our budget as close to the beginning of the year as possible. We can have one meeting where we review the audited result and we review the budget that's been approved by the board compared to last year. So basically what we've done here tonight over these past few meetings, you know, here's our audited financial statements, you know, full disclosure, here's our budget. These are the things that are changing. We need some benefits, we don't, whatever. Also, at that same time, I would recommend that we provide a estimate for the next 2 fiscal years. So we're looking out and saying, we don't have a problem until 2026. We want to know when the shit's gonna hit the fan, so to speak. And then I would also recommend that in the middle of the year, maybe December or January, when we have our first 6 months under our belt, we have a discussion about like this we have here. It looks like we're not gonna be hiring the replacement to chief engineer. Our budget looks like it's gonna be X instead of Y. If we have the ability to provide insight as to what's happening, budget versus actual is different than we thought. And provide the audited financial statements or have a meeting about the budget, then I think the committee has the information they need to provide town council with appropriate updates. I don't believe that it's worth our while to talk about, you know, why we haven't gotten Jordan's Furniture to get a sponsorship yet, or, you know, get into that level of operations. It's just focus on the fact that here's, so that's what I would propose as a way to provide forecasts and also provide final actual data.
Really more twice a year is what.
Yeah,
twice a year.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So if I,
So-
WC, oh, go ahead.
I would say we could meet periodically, but no less than semi-annually or twice,
And I don't even know.
or
if
even
we-
annually. Maybe if we
we-
just say periodically, but no less than annually.
Yeah, I think that's good. The annually would be, you know, here's the audit for results, here's the budget. You know, the 6 months could be a report that says, you know, here's what our budget, here's our actual, you know, everything's in good shape. You know, we don't have to sit down, we don't have to have a meeting. So I think
It
that's a
sort
good
of gives
idea.
us flexibility if we want to meet or.
Right, we may want to be, hey, we have, you know, our stuff blew up.
Yep.
The school came in at 360 grand.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
All right.
And, you know, town council representation or whatever, right? Somebody's gonna wanna get up to speed, no, wait, I just got on, now I gotta wait a year to figure out what I get.
Right.
Unfortunately, we have the minutes of here, but I think there will be those cases where you do want to get together, but
For the completely
I think that,
happens in the federal government.
the most important thing is the commitment that we make
Yeah.
as an organization, and I, you know, have to get the board to buy in, but I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. Because certainly comfortable with the open book that the approach we've taken in this working group.
So I have that to read. The WCAT working group meet periodically, but no less than annually to review financials and progress in other areas as well as provide updates to the town council.
Yeah, and budgets, financials, well, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, financials and budgets. whatever.
Financials.
Yeah, that's good.
All right,
You
may
got
I,
it.
may I suggest, because we've made a lot of changes, thoughts, ideas to the document in front of us, that we do meet next month. And then pending where this document is, decide what to do with the meeting after that.
Yeah, the most important thing in addition to that is that whole issue of fund
Right.
transfers. We gotta get the clarification there. So like I said,
All right,
Woody's phone's gonna be ringing in the morning.
so let's plan on one more monthly meeting in April. And, you know, on the proviso that if we close all of the open issues from tonight, that then we can decide to meet sometime in the future, not in May, where we're going to be in the middle of annual town meeting anyway.
And yeah,
Is that okay with everyone?
it's okay by me.
Sounds great.
Okay, all right, so that brings us up to,
How about April 17th?
I think that's a great idea.
April
What day of the week
17th.
is that?
So Wednesday,
Same
we
with
have
Wednesday,
this
Steve.
room booked out.
okay.
Can we meet in the
We
studio?
can meet in the studio.
Okay, let's plan to
Yeah.
meet in the
Does that
studio.
work for you, Mike?
Yeah.
I think that works for me. I don't.
That is school
Previous
vacation.
week I'm in DC and then I'm in Florida, but I think I'll be back.
Yeah, you're not gonna. fly
Yeah,
on
'cause
school
the
vacation
previous-
week, I don't think.
The previous
no,
Wednesday, the
I
tenth,
got a
we are
wedding.
all
Oh.
busy.
And they're work related.
The wedding
Right.
that was really not a
Work-related,
wedding, is a
yeah.
wedding now. That was
Work
back on.
related and
I,
17th?
yeah,
17th.
17th looks good, but I just have to
6:30.
check my schedule when I get home.
6 or 6:30, we did 6:30 tonight.
6:30 sounds good.
Oh,
Did that work for everyone?
Oh, you wanna do 6?
6 is fine.
I'm indifferent.
I like
Okay.
6.
I like
6 is
that.
good.
6.
Okay.
I was here at 6 anyway, so, all right.
I'm gonna be here a minute before the meeting starts anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for February 21, 2024.
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I get your
Opposed?
name spelled right, Bill.
Yeah, anyone opposed? That's accepted. Okay. Group member comments. We'll start with Amy.
I don't know that I really have anything tonight.
Okay.
It's nice to be back in person.
We're glad to have you back and
Nice to be
glad
away from all
that
those
you're,
people at home.
that you're
seeing
healthy
people.
again. Steve,
I'm good.
Bill? No? Ian?
Just, again, thank you all for everything you're doing and helping us to keep it going.
Brian?
I'm good.
I'm good too.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.